7th, just a little bit after noon. And I'm calling this special board meeting to order with a roll call vote.
Charles Black-Lance.
Here.
Kevin Boyles.
Here.
Tom Hageland.
Here.
Ruth Nelson.
Here.
Jana Shogren.
Here.
Sarah Spear.
Here.
All present.
Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this is a meeting being conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 13D.02. It is being streamed live via YouTube and being recorded. And we'll start with the approval of the agenda as presented. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
First from Director Spear, a second from Director Hagelin. Any further discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm going to try to keep this brief. I'm going to vote against the approval of the agenda as presented because of the absence of public comment in this meeting. I know because it was a special meeting, it falls under a specific policy that we actually approved back in September, but I also know that we have an agenda-setting body that can make alterations to a special board meeting before it is posted to the public website within the required statutory timeline. It concerns me that we go the entire month of April without having a public input period for our community members. And so as a result, I wanted to kind of make that known and maybe suggest that we look at that policy one more time so that when we have a special board meeting that it gives those of you that do set the board meeting agenda a little bit more latitude to be able to implement that. I don't believe that this was necessarily deliberate, but I also get concerned that the folks that sit out here might see it that way because we certainly get our share of accusations that we do things behind closed doors and that we lack transparency. I, for one, ran for this seat that I sit in on the idea of transparency. So anything that we can do to increase that, in my mind, is paramount. And then secondarily, we're obligated to listen to what these people have to say. I mean, I don't necessarily like to sit here and hear about Bigfoot and unicorns and some of the stuff that we do have to listen to in a meeting, but they pay their taxes, they're entitled to their 3 minutes, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I would suggest we do put that on our next meeting agenda to revise that policy, because I agree we need to have one public discussion every month. So we can debate it more at that time. And in the meantime, anyone that's here, as always, we all have emails and phone numbers. You could certainly reach out to us. Plus, if you were going to talk about the superintendent search, we have community meetings the next 3 days. So that's all I have to say. Any other additions?
One thing I'd like to comment on with this is I'm very much a process person. And from my end, as being part of the vice chair, that my end, we're following that process. I'm welcome to having this discussion later on at a later session. But the one thing that's really important for me is that I personally live my life above reproach, and I just feel it's important for me to share that I still feel I'm doing so with this process. I don't want to add to a narrative that's already out there about transparency. I don't believe this is a transparency issue. I think this is a policy issue, and we're a policy-making body here for the school district, and there's a time and a place for that. But most importantly, we need to make sure that we keep the students focused at the center of all that we do, and to make sure that we do not continue to erode any of that public trust for this board. So at this point, I believe we're following process, and I feel comfortable with where we're at today.
Thank you. So we have a first from Director Spear, a second from Director Hagelin. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-1. Then next up is recognitions, and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Larson.
Thank you very much. It's an honor today, first of all, to say that last week, several of us had the distinct pleasure to be able to go over to Forest View Middle School, where Sarah Lemke, our special education teacher, was awarded the 2022 Brainerd Teacher of the Year Award. And it was just a treat to surprise her with that, and just to see how the kids acknowledged her and recognized her, and the other fellow teachers and the administration. And we're just so proud of the work that she's done with our students with special needs, and congratulations to Sarah, just a phenomenal, phenomenal educator. So I think we should give her a round of applause in case she'd like it. And that being said, I'm going to put one of my superintendent comments from my superintendent report in right now. And that has to do with, as you know, the 2021 Teacher of the Year for Brainerd Public Schools was Erin Karlgaard. Very recently, we heard that she was a finalist for Minnesota Teacher of the Year. And just last Thursday, we found out that she is in the top 11 selected for 2021 Minnesota Teacher of the Year. And it will go down to the top 4 or top 5, I'm not sure, but she will be recognized at a distinguished reception on the first Sunday in May. And so congratulations to Erin as well for getting this far. I think Mr. Dowd is the last time that we had a Teacher of the Year that got this close to being the State Teacher of the Year. So can we give Erin a round of applause as well? And finally, the last recognition that I have today is a thank you to Alexis Marcello, Emily Freed, and Aubrey Coman for planning the Warrior Day, which was March 25th. Some highlights of that day were they had a polar plunge, which raised $21,948 for the Special Olympics of Minnesota. And the outreach program packed more than 25,000 meals for people in the Ukraine. And so that, too, I think we need to give them a round of applause. So that ends my report.
Thank you. Fun things, yeah, that's great.
Awesome.
And then number 6, of course, we've already discussed, but there's no public input at this meeting, and we'll go on to approval of minutes. First, we have the special school board meeting from April 4th.
I'll move to approve.
Second?
We have a first from Director Schroeder and a second from Director Boyles. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. And then the special school board meeting from April 5th.
Move to approve.
Second?
First from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Boyles. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then the special board meeting from April 6th.
I'll approve, or move to approve.
A second?
First from Director Blacklands, a second from Director Spear. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next up, we have the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So move.
Second.
First from Director Boyles, a second from Director Blacklands. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And now we'll go on to new business. First, we'll have a presentation from the Blueprint 181 project update. It looks like Damian Williams, Mark Needham, and Reed TC are all here.
And we have a birthday boy here, too.
Oh.
Damien.
Oh,
Yeah.
where are the cupcakes?
Yeah.
And we're serious.
Not joking.
Yeah, we aren't joking about this. That's good.
So the quick update here for the Blueprint 181. We've got 2 items that we're asking for approval on, which is the PR 54 building plan review comments to add fire dampers at the Brainerd North High School campus. This is for A wing, or the A building. And there are comments that they provided us that we had to go through and add dampers, so controls and electrical and the physical dampers themselves to meet the needs of the state. So that's what, and that's for $70,260. So that's the first line item we have there, and then the second one is the Lincoln Demolition project. So the contract through Sourcewell for that project for $408,663.19. to demo Lincoln.
Okay.
And currently, that lives within the budget that we
does,
have
yes.
allotted, yes.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions about either, well, why don't we take the first one first, the PR 54? Okay, do we have a motion to approve that PR?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Okay, we have a first from Director Spear, a second from Director Schogren. Any additional comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. And next up is the Lincoln demolition.
I moved for approval of the Lincoln Demolition Project to Anderson Brothers by Sourcewell Contract, work number 103346 for $408,663 as presented.
I'll second.
Can I just ask the timeline of that project?
Yes, you can, but I don't know it right off the top of my head. I know it's coming up here because we're getting more, as I learn more about the project, get the details in.
Spring
Damien
/
probably
summer?
is.
Here.
Early hits of June.
Reed
still
TC
hit
is
June
coming
project.
up.
So we, plan is the last day of school is June 6th, for teachers to be there to fill out their, end of year paperwork. 7th through the end of that week, we will be moving out items from Lincoln over to South Campus. And then starting the week of 13th, we would be mobilizing, on site to start the demolition. We'll start out on the site and then work our way, indoors. But we have asbestos removal and other, things to prepare, utility disconnects and stuff like that on the inside. So that'll all take part in June, and then sometimes toward, the later part of the month, we'll start, removal of material.
And then we had talked, this has been a while ago, but about the bricks, maybe saving some bricks.
Yep,
for-
yep, we've got a list of about 4 or 5 things that we've worked on with contractors to set aside for future projects to honor the Lincoln Elementary School, so.
Wonderful.
And how will people be able to access?
We'll send out notifications when we get a little closer to that time frame. Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely.
So we do have a first from Director Blacklands on this motion and a second from Director Boyles. Any other comments, questions?
I'd like to abstain from voting.
Okay. So one abstention. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. So the motion carries 5-0 with Director Spear abstaining. Thank you. That's all you guys have, right?
Easy.
Oh, yeah, we don't have a presentation today, so.
What's that?
We don't have a presentation, so.
Okay, so you're going out to get those cupcakes now.
We're gonna get those cupcakes, absolutely.
30 minutes, we
We're all
should be
hungry,
done.
it's
We'll be
noon.
ready.
Okay, and next up is the Brainerd Public Schools response to the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee vote of non-concurrence, and I will be reviewing that along with Candace Burkhardt. And I think it would be good if I read a little bit of this, but not all of it. You all have it in your packet, and I'm sure you've all read it. So afterwards, if we have any questions, but just some of the things that the Board of Education in this district have done. Oh, and Tim Murtha is joining us too. As you all know, we continue to put equity at the forefront of some of our work. We have a task force, which includes Board of Education and APAC members. We've done regular professional development on cultural competency. We've hosted American Indian speakers and presenters, and we provided staff with learning opportunities on using American Indian-centered reading text. Plus, we've recently hired Candace as our full-time student support services and equity director to continue this work. So, and we're very excited to have you. You've already done great work, so thank you.
Thank you.
So we're continuing to doing this work, and we address the 3 areas of concerns in this document: a welcoming environment, representation, and information. And I don't know if there's anything specific anyone has questions on, but under welcoming environment, we have and are continuing to do staff training. There's a newsletter that goes out that I didn't even know about until I read this or learned about this, so that's exciting. We are reviewing our policies, and when needed, APAC is being invited to work with those on us. On representation, we provided more data on American Indian students, and the district has worked with Dr. Sandra Pota to help us pull out some of that data. And we're currently working on data regarding staff recruitment and retention plans. And then information, continuing to refine and report on district data to help determine policies and procedures that we need. And that will continue to be reviewed. And then finally, we have this timeline that after this is approved, we will update this timeline and present it at a future board meeting. So, Candace, Tim, what else would you like to add?
I think that's a great summary of the work we're committing to doing moving forward in regards to the APAC recommendations. I think, yep, like you said, we will revisit that timeline once the board approves the resolution and continue to work forward.
I'm loud enough, you guys want to. I think that the establishment of the frameworks that we did last summer coming out of this meeting at that time is going to carry forward and gives us a framework that we can continue with. You know, things are clearer now about how to cooperate, how to communicate, and what the expectations are.
Okay, yeah, I would agree. Wonderful. Any questions? No? Okay. Do we have a motion? And this will be a resolution.
This is a resolution. We will need the signature of each board member.
And I've got that to circulate.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. Motion to approve?
So move.
Thank you.
A second.
So we have a first from Director Boyles, a second from Director Shogren. And we'll do any further discussion. Okay, roll call vote, Janet?
Kevin Boyles,
Aye.
Tom Haglund,
Aye.
Ruth Nelson,
Aye.
Jana Schroeren,
Oh, aye.
Sarah Spear,
Aye.
Charles Blackmans, all in favor.
Wonderful. So it's approved and there's a, the document is coming around for our signature.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next up, I think you're staying, yes? Approval of the course
I'm going to
renumbering
be here
system.
most of the afternoon.
Well, hopefully not most of the afternoon.
Yeah, you can be alone.
I'll take it.
Beth, are you coming too?
No, Beth is not. I'm Beth for this.
Okay.
To begin?
I believe so.
Okay. Hi, I'm Michelle Pica. I'm the Student Information System Specialist for the school district. I'm here today in front of you looking for approval for numbering and name changes for our Forest View Course Master numbering system we have. At Forest View, I don't want to say like the history of the Course Master and the numbering system dates back farther than I believe I've been in school in Brainerd Public Schools. So it's been at least 20, 30 years with those numbers that we have. Times have changed and we have a lot of online curriculum nowadays, and it's difficult for me to be able to go in and mesh the numbers with the online curriculum that we have. So what I'm looking for is an approval. If you look at the agenda that you have in the board minutes, I've been working closely with the registrar over at Forest View. Since this fall, she's brand new to the district, brand new to that position, and we've been working together on a numbering system that makes sense to all of us. And so if you notice on the course cleanup and catalog summary, there's kind of a master, an array of 6-digit numbers that we utilize for the course numbering system that we've created, along with a little bit of title cleanup in some of our courses. So just looking for an approval.
I'm going to clarify just a couple things systemically. Michelle's done a tremendous amount of work on this, and this follows up on work that she led when we cleaned up the secondary numbers at the high school a couple of years ago. We want vertical alignment and registration. We also want the efficiencies of being able to use the technology systems we have to make the connections with curriculum that we pump out to teachers digitally, but also this allows us to connect with systems that Sue Anderson uses for MARS reporting and aligns us to communicate with the state for the Minnesota Common Course Catalog, which is a requirement. So it's an opportunity for us to kind of come into the 21st century on a couple of pieces and add some efficiencies to what we do. What happens when we don't make these updates is we rely too heavily on the institutional knowledge of the individual to remember something. And this is how the input gets dirty, because it won't affect them at the surface level. It affects the person who does the final reporting that goes to MDE or goes to wherever. And if something gets kicked out, they have to backtrack, figure out what it is, call 3 people, someone else has to make a correction. So this is the kind of stuff we're cleaning up on the back end. It will make things more efficient for us and a little bit cleaner. So we really appreciate the work that Michelle has led on this.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, I remember doing this a few years back.
This is DAC approved. Technically, this is a curriculum adjustment. So under policy and statute, it comes to you through the district advisory committee, because what we're doing is technically we're changing the relationship between a course number and a course title. And those are things that once created cannot be changed without your permission.
I move to approve the course renumbering system as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second.
We have first from Director Hagel and a second from Director Black-Lance. Any further discussion?
Michelle, I got to see this in DAC, and I have about 4 or 5 questions. Just kidding. No, I fired any questions I had at DAC. And, but I just want to say I really appreciate the hard work. This isn't something clearly you did overnight, and a lot of effort. So well
And a
done.
lot of it goes to Christina Wilson too over at Ford, so she did a lot of the manual labor, so thanks to her as well.
And as a parent with children coming up through that system, thank you so much, because it'll be a lot easier.
And I would just reiterate the SMART work. When you were describing what was this and for what reason, it was really well thought out. So thank you for bringing that consistency and continuity.
Thank you.
If we had a cupcake, I'd give you one.
We went to get them, I think.
Like guilt them into doing it.
Wouldn't that be funny? Yeah.
Okay, so we have a first from Director Hagel and a second from Director Black-Lance. Any further discussion? Not to deal with cupcakes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have Elementary Fayette Curriculum. Oh, boy. I sure do.
Hello. Hi. I'm Beth Cooper. I am the ACOM coordinator and a secondary curriculum TOSA here in Brainerd Public Schools.
And I'm Alex Hirsch. I'm a Baxter PE teacher.
All right. We're here to present the elementary physical education presentation. This was also presented to the DAC a couple weeks ago. So our design team for this process, we had all of the elementary Fayette teachers present for this, representing all 6 elementary schools. Tim Murtha was our support team, and then I was helping out with the work that the team did. But they were amazing, and they had a lot already on tap and done, so it was really, really easy work. This team meets with elementary students, each class 5 days a week for 25 minutes, and that is across the board. It's a total of 125 minutes per week. One of the things that we had to consider is that there's only 5 standards for physical education, and those same 5 standards stretch K through 12. And then they have a number, I can't remember, I counted a little bit ago, but I forgot. There's like 15 focus areas, 16 focus areas that they work on throughout those different standards.
And many of them we retouch on multiple times throughout the year, modifying skills and activities.
Are these the same focus areas that you have for, like in a DAPE classroom for our students?
They're modified in a DAPE setting, yes.
Okay, great.
So our process that we used for this was really to look at prioritizing the benchmarks. The benchmarks that were prioritized by grade level are on the back end of this presentation. For the sake of the board meeting, we didn't want to go through all of those, even though we did at the DAC meeting. The team then wrote student-friendly learning targets for those benchmarks and then developed some assessments. We are working on, also they worked on bundling the benchmarks into units. Given kind of the recursive nature of physical education, when we looked at it, a lot of times, you know, the benchmarks fit into multiple places. It didn't, you know, these skills and these things that students are doing, they're not just doing them once over the course of the year. They're doing them over and over and over, you know, in basketball and then again volleyball and then in jump rope with the different skills.
And for us with the assessments, and we have classes for 25 minutes every day. So it's not like we have the 50-minute block. So our assessments need to be short and quick and to the point. So the assessments that we'll show you in a little bit are able for us to do that, do a quick assessment with each student.
So, and then that last piece is just really looking at the conversation around how we can have an equitable experience for all of our students in physical education courses across our district. So the assessments that were created are based on critical elements that they're actually spelled out in the MDE standards document. So the example of that is like for skipping, the 3 things that you would look for are the alternating rhythmic step hop motion, arms used in opposition to legs, and definite flight phase moving forward more than upward. So those are the same things then that we used in the rubrics for students to look at and use. So for each skill that the teachers will be looking at, they'll be able to say you're developing, you're proficient, and then they're able to also use that same rubric across K through 4, just with a little bit different expectation at each level.
So the bottom of that rubric shows K4, you can use it with a 3rd grader and see where they need to be, or you can use it with a kindergartner, which is really nice and slick for us. So.
And then the team, so DAC specifically had questions regarding how the team would plan for equity and inclusion when working on our curriculum. And one of those questions really was how do we respond when students haven't learned? And again, just kind of that recursive nature of physical education. The skills aren't done in isolation. They're often done within a game that requires a lot of different things. So it's going to be retaught in various different ways. And it might be that you really like this game, but you don't like this game, and you learned the skill here rather than here. Just like adults choose activities that we would prefer as well.
And just making those modifications so that way students can be successful and enjoy what they're learning.
So, and then how do we respond when students have already learned? I think this was something too that you were all able to really spell out pretty well.
Yeah, that was just challenging those students who maybe are a little bit more advanced than some of the other students in class. One example I think of is basketball. If we have students who are still struggling to dribble with that bounce, we can take those students and practice dribbling, and we might have some of those basketball players in class who that's easy. So then we're challenging them with, you know, okay, now you're gonna dribble with a defender on you and keep the ball under control. So just kind of giving those kids a challenge so they're still engaged while allowing us to still meet the needs of those students who are still at the developing level.
So as far as selecting the activities and resources, when we get to that piece of it and really think about that as through this process, just the modifications that we talked about, you know, the example they gave on an earlier slide was using a balloon for a volley rather than a ball. I mean, depending on the tool or implement that you use can increase or decrease the difficulty. You know, including collaborative and competitive games and having a good balance of both. You know, independent and team activities, just really mixing that up, or even assigning roles and responsibilities. You know, if you know a student has some mobility issues, making sure that they have a role that they can feel successful in, but maybe doesn't require the mobility that another position would require. talking a lot about social skills, and then also just really talking a lot about how we get better with practice and helping kids to see how they've improved over time because of the practice they've done.
Yeah, and some of our social emotional skills, that was huge this year. After, I think, coming off of 2020 and then last year, a lot of the behind the screens, they weren't working with each other. It was just individual work. So now we're bringing them back into the gym, thankfully, and we're seeing a lot of competitiveness come out. So it's just having those conversations with students and teaching them how to deal with a little bit of adversity in the gym again.
Some factors affecting equity in PE would be economic status. Some of our students don't have access to space when they're in their home spaces, equipment, experiences, you know, the kids who can sign up for basketball versus, or dance, or whatever the activity is, versus maybe the ones who struggle to do that. The team talked about language. We have our EL learners, students who have disabilities in language, or maybe just don't have the exposure to language, the sports tech terminology, or even just, you know, thinking about our younger students, you know, over and under, some of those, that vocabulary and languages can be something that needs to be taught as we go. Ability and disability for students varies quite a bit from student to student, even, I mean, at the elementary through 12th grade. And then really the social emotional skills can vary from student to student, and thinking about that, so.
Yeah, and that was one thing COVID did give us is when our group had to get a little bit more creative with some of our online videos, and we talk about space and equipment. Some students aren't right next to a park, or they don't have a basketball hoop in their backyard. So it was a laundry basket and roll up some socks and there's some basketball for you. So we had to get a little bit creative. So I think that was fun for some of those students.
And then Dak had also asked about the impact of online learning for physical education specifically. We talked about space, you know, some students maybe who live in an apartment or in a place where they don't have that green space or even supervision to go outside and do something. Private classes and community activities, those kinds of things. Even having friends in the neighborhood to play with can be something that might have a big impact on students' social emotional health. Knowledge of and accessibility to Google Classroom. So, you know, everything was on Google Classroom, but I think that was a factor, and then just having access to equipment, like Alex said. And then it's really noticeable across all of the students, the impact of COVID. Just, I think if you want to talk a little bit about what you've been saw this year.
I talked a little bit about just team cooperation and relationships. That's been huge in the gyms and a huge focus for all of our staff. But I think our biggest goal was our cardiovascular endurance. We were a little bit nervous going into this year on that. And so that was our goal this year, is to have our students be in that healthy fitness zone for one of our fitness tests, our PACER tests. And actually, this fall we were at 52% across the board for our elementary schools, and our goal was 85, and we actually reached 88%. So that was really fun to see. And I think a huge part of that was we made it fun. We had different challenges that we do twice a month, and we had students excited for some of these tag games and cardiovascular themed things going on in the gym. And so it was a different element that didn't see before. And so I think that was a huge part of our increase in that. So that was awesome.
I think, yeah. Do you have any questions?
That's amazing results to get to 82 this spring, so good work.
Yeah.
That shows you how much, our kids are needed to be in those schools. Wonderful. Any? So do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second?
First from Director Shogun, a second from Director Boyles. Any further discussion, comments? Okay, good work, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Let's kind of fun to see some new young teachers in here too. Okay, next up we have some policy approvals. This one sounds exciting, records retention.
You know me, I always bring the joy. We pulled this policy out separate from the others because this is a new policy that does not currently exist in the district, and it allows us to pull together the threads of multiple departments around obeying the statutes for record retention and creating a common resource that allows people to go to for guidance on whether this is a record that needs to be kept or not. So it's a simple one. It does cross-reference with a 500 policy that'll be coming later around student privacy of records, which is really the driving force because that's where you include your IEP data and your special education records. So since this is a new policy, it requires 3 readings, not 2, so that's why we pulled it separate. Special kudos go to Ms. Horn for her work in compiling a document of the record retention schedule by department, which had not been updated since 2001. So it was time.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the first reading of policy 325?
So moved.
Second. We have a first from Director Blacklance, a second from Director Spear. Further discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, and on to the rest of these.
On to the next batch. The next batch are policies that govern student surveys, student disability and non-discrimination, student disability and non-discrimination form, the student use of parking and motor vehicles, patrol inspection and searches, student use of parking motor vehicles, patrol and inspection searches form, staff notification for violent behavior students, and the corresponding form. There are no real major challenges or changes to any of these policies. Some of them are quite old. There's just some clarification of language and clarification of who in the district is responsible for decision making. So there are no substantive changes to the student survey policy other than updated language explaining the district requirements. The substance had not changed, but the paragraph got longer on what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to communicate in advance. And regarding student surveys, they really fall into 3 categories. The first category is those that we do for legal compliance to either Title I or to Minnesota Department of Education, or we do in cooperation with federal and state agencies. Those we have always followed the policy of notification in advance with the option of opting out, and you've always been able to preview what the survey was about. The second group are just the localized surveys that schools use to just get the feel of things, if there's an issue, if there's a question in front of the community. This is an area where we can do a better job of consistently communicating in advance on this. A wonderful example is all the work and surveys that were pushed out during the construction process and the bonding process prior. Okay, there was a couple times where we probably could have given a little bit more advance notice on that, and it would have also probably improved participation in the quality of the data we collected. And then the final group there's a series of internal surveys that are part of the district ACOMP plan, the ATTPS plan for teacher growth. And these are stakeholder surveys which are given in every single classroom once a year by each teacher. This is not something that we have shared those questions out in advance. The question had never come up before. But in review of the policy, we identified this is an area where we can communicate better that these surveys are going on. The information collected by the survey is not used by the district for teacher evaluation. The sole audience of the data is the teacher, his or herself, that they're using it to identify their own areas of personal growth. So they get the opportunity to hear from their students and their families how their students and families view them. But like I said, I need to be very clear, because there's an agreement with the association, and appropriately so, that is not evaluative data on the teacher, but we can communicate that out better. So that would constitute 520 and the corresponding elements thereof. Policy 521, student disability discrimination. The policy is fundamentally unchanged. It did reference the director of schools, which is a position that no longer exists in the district. And with the advent of an HR department, a students support services division, because of some of those things that Mr. Severson used to do are getting passed out as we review policy to the corresponding organ of the district. In this case, would be Student Support Services. That's the only substantive change. There's an update on the form in terms of dates and title. Student use of parking and motor vehicles, the only change there is clarification that the principal has the authority over her parking lot. So the Principal Rusk can make decisions about behaviors and actions that occur in the parking lot. And that's the only substantive change there. And that's the pattern as we go through. 527, student use of motor vehicles is, I already talked about that, it was just periodic review for the form. And then for violent behavior by students, again, this is language update and some statute update, but there's no substantive change to it. So it's just a little bit of reading here and there.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the slate of policy updates as presented by Director Murtha.
I'll second.
First from Director Boyle, the second from Director Blacklands. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you're done, huh?
For this month.
Next up, we have ratification of the custodial contract with Angie Bennett.
Hello, everybody. So we have another group that we were able to come to agreement with for the 21-23 period. So we are recommending approval of 2021 to 2023. The custodial contract is what we call it, but there are different positions in there. The main highlights are an increase in wages of 2% on each year, increase in longevity payments. Another bigger change for the group is previously they used to be on a monthly wage schedule, and we are moving that into an hourly wage due to their non-exempt status. And then they will be moving starting July 1st to the use of time clocks. So they'll be paid as they go instead of kind of that monthly salary, which can be confusing to employees. Some various language updates and kind of reorganization of the contract to make more sense versus kind of the exhibits that have previously been in there. And then we did work with the group to create a pipeline for individuals to pursue getting their boiler's license if they so chose. So the district would support in paying for the examination prep as well as the exam in the hopes that we can start building kind of our capacity for some of those engineer roles. That's about it. Any questions?
I'll move to approve.
Second?
First from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Spear. Further discussions? I just have one question. Going from the salary to the hourly wage, is that going to be a lot more work for your department?
No.
No, okay.
No, it's a conversion, so it's actually easier for the payroll department.
Oh,
Right now, we use paper timesheets. They will be moving to the use of time clocks, which can be uploaded into the payroll system.
okay.
And then overtime and such can be automatically calculated versus kind of tallying. And
Okay.
the monthly wage is kind of, isn't completely accurate because you still have to go back and figure out if there was any overtime in the particular weeks because they're paid on a monthly wage basis, which is more like the salary, which gets confusing, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice work as usual,
Thank you,
Angie.
So first from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Spear. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we move into our informational part of the meeting. First with the Brainerd Public Schools Foundation.
Yeah,
Dr.
so
Schroeder.
we had a meeting recently, I think it was last week. And of course, at this time of year where scholarships are on everyone's mind, and so those seniors who applied for scholarships with the Brainerd Public Schools Foundation should be getting notified any time now. Of course, they're working hard to get those final things sorted, and there are some outside awards that come in too, so I know that our team, I think internally is ready, and they're just waiting for a couple more award notifications from outside in the community. So seniors, stay tuned to your inboxes soon to find out if you are awarded a scholarship. There is a scholarship recognition night on May 11th at 6:30 p.m. at Forest View. Doors open at 6 o'clock, and some people may recognize this event as senior recognition night in the past, and there's really being an emphasis put on the fact that it's a scholarship recognition night because there was just a little bit of confusion sometimes. Sometimes seniors would arrive and maybe they hadn't been awarded a scholarship, and so it was just an uncomfortable experience for people. So we're really trying to get the word out that if you receive notification that you've received a scholarship, that's the night to show up and to meet the donor of your scholarship and to be awarded that in person. Keep an eye out for the dispatch this weekend. There'll be a nice, multiple page wrap that's inserted about the Brainerd Public Schools Foundation. So it's just a great way for the community to learn more about what our foundation is doing for our schools, and we appreciate that. And then, as always, there are items. The Warrior Store has a home at Visit Brainerd downtown. So especially with the new spring sports season coming up, I get questions sometimes about where can I get Warrior gear. So downtown at Visit Brainerd is, thanks to our school foundation, is where you can get Warrior gear.
Great. Yeah. Great. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Director Schobran. Equity Task Force update. Director Boyles.
Yeah, we had a meeting last week as well. Feels like 3 months ago for some reason, but it was just last week. It was actually a really exciting meeting for me personally, because I hadn't been to the one before that. And it really feels like this group is taking shape. I think that community listening session did a lot to kind of galvanize certain elements within there. I definitely believe that the addition of Dr. Burkhart to the mix, certainly Tim's gray hair is slowing down a little bit now. I think, I don't want to speak for him, but obviously she's doing a great job of kind of herding cats in that room. I'm sometimes the lead cat, unfortunately. But I think we covered a lot of really interesting ground in the last meeting, where we were able to discuss the district data through the lens of like the student safety and engagement, which is sort of the primary focus. And we were kind of talking about that during the meeting, that we sort of bit off the biggest bite right in the beginning. So that's like the lion's share of the work that has to be done, and everything else sort of follows that to a certain extent, although that doesn't make any of that easier necessarily. Themes were discussed around building community with students and staff, how to increase the utilization of the student voices, implementing restorative practices. There was a lot of discussion around that. Was really informative and educational for me. And then none of this was finalized, by the way. This is all going to be picked back up in our May meeting. We did have fairly light attendance at this particular meeting, so we're trying to kind of revisit some of those themes that we touched on. And then we also spent some time hashing out a flow chart and a reporting shell that we can use for continuity around communicating the buckets of work to leaders that will be using them in their decision-making processes. So those are being reviewed and finalized, and will also be really kind of kicked around some more and finalized at our May meeting. And then finally, Dr. Burkhart shared some exciting news about a grant opportunity through the Minnesota Department of Education. Got a little bit of feedback from us for where we can get a large amount of money that can be utilized for staff training and implementation of programs relating to equity, including social emotional needs, restorative practices. And I believe the plan is to get that submitted this week. And that is pretty much what we covered. It was an exciting meeting. Like I said, I'm really excited about the fact that it seems like the group has a purpose and a lot of different voices at the table that are really creating interesting conversations that I think once we're able to get on the street with that stuff, it's going to create some real strong recommendations for this body. So that was us.
Any questions? Thanks for your work on that task force. It's a big one. Next up, business service report.
I was going to say good evening, but good afternoon. Your enrollment report is in the packet. Just wanted to note, so we missed it last March as well, so I'm going to report on March and April. We were down 20 in March, and the prior year we were down 3, and then in April we are currently up 6. And in the prior year, we were down 10, so a little fluctuation there. And looking at the 3-year average from the beginning of the year, we were down 79 in March and down 89 in April. And we are currently at 91 in March and 85 in April, so kind of right on that average, not an outlier right now. So hopefully we can trend to keep holding on to those enrollment numbers so that we align with the budget at the end of the year. The financial report is in your packet. Nothing new to note on that. So I was going to report more so on what is currently in the supplemental budget bills, and maybe Elaine was going to touch on this too, but the Senate currently has $30 million in language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling, the letters program. And then $700,000 annually to the regional centers of excellence to support the state's literacy efforts. And that's all they really have in their bill. The House has a lot more going on. In fact, the proposal that they have would generate approximately $5 million for Brainerd and estimated. And that includes additional funding for SPED cross-subsidy, English language learners, support staff aid, which is new, para training aid, due process aid, one-time declining enrollment aid, operating capital revenue, looking at school meal reimbursements, VPK, mental health screening, paraprofessional training, prep time for SPED due process, compensatory revenue, and pupil transportation. And there's actually quite a bit more in there, but those are kind of the highlights for us that would generate revenue.
So the compensatory, that's based on free and reduced numbers, right?
Correct.
And is that to make up?
Correct.
Or we were to, so what are our numbers now?
They don't have any projections out for what this would mean for us, but we would be, we're projected to be down about $650,000 next year.
Okay. So parents out there, fill out those forms even though we have free meals.
Yes.
Yeah, because we were over 40% eligible for free and reduced meals prior to COVID. And now we're at about 32%, which accounts for that $357,000 that Marcy's talking about. So they are talking about, depending on where they end up between when it all ends up. But they're talking about a one-time payment to help to defer some of those costs for school districts. And that really came because we just weren't getting the forms filled out. So, please fill them out.
And then I haven't given an update, but we used CARES funds to add a system specialist. So I just wanted to give a quick update on that. When Angie referenced True Time, that's our electronic time clock system. She's been doing great. We should have BHS, Riverside, and Nisswa done by the end of the year. So then all EAs and behavior management specialists and cooks would be on there. The only sites left would be BLC and LEC, and that would be after construction. We would get them up and running. So by the end of this year, and then custodians would go on in July, and then hourly teachers would go on in August. So by the end of this year, all of our hourly staff would be using time clocks instead of paper timesheets.
Wonderful.
Very exciting.
March, when you say time clock, it's not an actual time clock, but they log into their computer?
Correct.
Either or. So we have a one-time clock in the buildings that they could punch in and out. They can use their phones or they could use their computer.
Didn't know you could buy new time clocks anymore.
Yes, you can. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Marcy. And next up is our superintendent's report.
Yeah, so I just want to start again today by congratulating Sarah Lemke on being awarded the 2022 Teacher of the Year, and again to Erin Karlgaard for her work and continuing at the state level for 2021. So what an honor to be selected by your peers of over 500 people and to be selected for this prestigious honor in this district. And so I'm really, really happy for both of these great practitioners, and just really proud of the work that they do and the work that all of our teachers do. And I agree with whoever said it. It's really fun to have. Alex, it was really nice to have you coming up again today and to get to just to meet some of the great work that you do every day when you deal with our little children. So thank you. I also have a couple of things in here. I would like to add on a little bit to what Marcy was talking about. I think one of the places where we have been spending the majority of our time the last couple of months is trying to balance the budget for next year. As the board is aware, in June of each year, we come to you with a balanced budget for the coming school year. And this year, like other years, only probably more extreme than other years, We're waiting on the legislature to see what happens before we can make final decisions. But we feel like we're making some great progress at bringing a balanced budget to you in June, and we will have further additional information at the May 9th board meeting. And appreciate some of the input that some of you have been giving us. It's been very, very helpful. So I thank you for that, and we will have that ready. Also, as Marcy said, she was talking about the legislature, and I talked a little bit about it as well. Just so you're aware, the last day of the legislative session is May 23rd, and oftentimes education funding will be the very last thing because it is such a large amount of money. And so it's often one of the last things that is decided upon before the legislature ends. Just so you know, they're at the midpoint right now of the conversations that they're having at the legislature. They'll take a week off now over the holiday, and then they'll be back and hitting it hard. So please be watching really carefully, because I'm assuming that we're going to find some kind of a compromise in between the two areas of government, which is really typical. Also, about 2.5 weeks ago, I had the fortunate opportunity to go down with the other superintendents from Region 5 to lobby with our legislators, and it was really super fun because I know when we went with Representative Heinzman, he said, you're the very first in-person conversations that we've had in 2 years. And so many of the people were making comments to that it's really fun to be able to have people coming in face to face and having the conversations of how it impacts our districts and so on. And so I really appreciate all our local legislators hearing from us and just hearing what the pandemic, how it has affected school districts, because we know it's really been difficult the last couple of years. One of the fun things that Anne Marie and I are working on right now is we're working hard with a committee of people to get a really staunch marketing campaign going for the school district, just to really identify some of the magnificent things that are going on in our classrooms at all 13 of our buildings right now. And we're really hoping that you're going to see a lot more come publicly regarding that. But we are also working on getting the dedications opportunities since our lovely buildings that our community generously supported in 2018. Since the onset of the pandemic, we have been able to open many of these buildings, but we haven't had the dedications of those buildings yet because of all the effects of the pandemic. But we are going to do that. And so we're very excited. Starting on April 25th, we're going to have the Lowell Dedication. On May 3rd, we're going to dedicate Nisswa Elementary School. On May 5th, it'll be Harrison. May 10th, Riverside, and you'll get all this in much greater detail. May 12th, we'll have the Baxter dedication. May 17th, we'll have the Garfield dedication. And May 20th, we'll have the Warrior Early Learning Center dedication. And they're all at 9 o'clock in the morning, as you'll get an invitation. We also are inviting the public to come to those dedications, because this is where we'll have a few really short speeches. We'll have kids performing in each of our buildings. We will have the unveiling of the plaque that'll get put up in each of these facilities, and we will have the ribbon cutting of each of our facilities so we can dedicate these beautiful buildings the way we're supposed to do that. Since we are doing it during the school day, though, we aren't going to give big tours of these facilities. Instead, what we're going to do in June is we're going to have kind of a school tour where we're going to see if Reichert's will help us with some busing. And we're going to be able to bring our community throughout the community to see the different buildings so they can get into the buildings and see the gymnasium, the cafeteria, some of the classrooms, and so on. The buildings will also have a time frame in which they're open so people can just drive to certain buildings if they want to be able to go into them. I know many times I talk to people and they're like, I just want to get in the building. I haven't been able to see what Harrison looks like or whatever. And we're going to make sure that we can do that, and we're going to do that in June. And so just at exec this morning, Anne Marie was proposing kind of what a plan like that might look like. I also want to invite the public and the board and everyone to another dedication, which will be on May 4th, and that will be the dedication of the Brainerd High School Aquatic Center. And that dedication will be held at 5:30 in the evening. After sports practices, so our kids can have a big, huge part in that as well. And that will incorporate a tour around the Aquatic Center into the locker rooms, to see how the pool functions, some of those kinds of things. And we'll have lots of tours and really a fun evening that night as well. And so we're hoping that as many people from the community will come out to those dedications. I want to talk with the board at some point to see if, Ruth, if you want to do the announcement or the welcome from this board, and if you want to share it amongst board members at these 8 dedications, but we'll talk about that as we move forward, because what a great opportunity to be able to dedicate these lovely facilities. We're finally there and we can do that. And the last thing that I want to say is that it's hard to believe, but very shortly, on June 3rd, we will be having graduation in our last day of school. And so a month and a half from now, I'm not sure where this year went, but there's a lot of things as I look at this calendar, and I'm sure that our chair is going to talk about the superintendent search and the timeline and such like that over the course of the next 3 days, but there's a lot of excitement going on over the course of the next month and a half. And so we really ask the community to get engaged and come and let's celebrate this great year together.
Wonderful,
So,
thank you.
And we're in person all year. How about that? Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Good news. Yeah, so talking about future meetings, as you all know, and for the public, we have our superintendent candidates coming back starting tomorrow. And I just want to make sure that you know that all the community knows that the parent and community time with the superintendent candidates is at 4:45 each evening, right here in the boardroom. And then after that, the candidates will go out to dinner with us, and then we'll have the final interview. So that's basically April 12th, 13th, and 14th. So those are on your agenda, but the 4:45 is not there. So everyone's welcome at 4:45 at the boardroom to meet our candidates. And then the rest, I think the rest is, you did a great job on talking about all the dedications, and so the rest is right there for future meetings. Any other things people want to highlight?
Just to note that, as Lane said, graduation's June 3rd. On here it reads June 2nd, just so we don't create any confusion in the community.
Yep, should be June 3rd, that's there.
Okay, thank you for catching that.
Good catch. One question I have is, has there been any talk at all about when the special board meeting will be to accept the proposed person for the superintendent? Otherwise, we'll need to give a 3-day notice in order to have that meeting.
Okay, so we need to get that on the agenda.
Is that at the conclusion of the contract negotiations with that person once right?
Usually it is, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yep, that's how mine was, yeah.
Okay.
That went pretty easily, though.
Hopefully it will again.
It was done over the phone, yeah.
Okay, anything else to, okay, hearing nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, who gets the first?
Charles.
Okay, the second was Boyles? Hagelin, okay. Any discussion?
I just have one question that I would like clarified. Is the board asking at the reason I asked for the date of the special board meeting is, do you want to talk about the time and manner procedure at that meeting, or wait until the regular meeting on May 9th?
I think we can do it at the next meeting.
Okay, at the
May 9th?
special meeting?
At the special meeting. We can add it to the agenda.
Given that we have the holiday wedged in there, I would think it would be coming up as quick as it needs to, assuming everything goes smoothly.
So conversation at the next meeting? Okay, thank you.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.